Welcome to the SAFeTY Chronicles, exploring how to keep people and pets safe from the cycle of interpersonal violence. I am your host, Allie Phillips, founder and CEO of Sheltering Animals and Families Together, the SAFeTY Program, a nonprofit organization working with domestic violence shelters to eliminate the pet housing barrier to safety. As the founder, I have led the global movement in helping domestic violence shelters create on-site pet housing while elevating the criminal justice response to how animal abuse links to crimes against people. I am a former prosecuting attorney, internationally recognized legal expert and public speaker, award-winning author, and advocate for protecting vulnerable victims. In this podcast, we will explore how and why animals are harmed in the cycle of family violence and the human-animal bond that keeps victims in harm's way with their pets. Guest speakers and I will share strategies for shelters and professionals working to safeguard survivors, why pet-inclusive sheltering is life-saving, and safety tips for those who need help. None of the content will be graphic. If you are in harm's way, please contact your nearest domestic violence shelter or call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. So I have a real treat for us today in this podcast. So first of all, everybody who's watching and listening, welcome to the SAFeTY Chronicles. And I want to introduce you to Genevieve Frederick, who is the founder of Pets of the Homeless, which is a national organization that we were just chatting offline. And I was trying to think of when we became connected, and I think it goes as far back as 2010, if not 2008. It goes back.
Probably so.
It goes back a ways. So because I have wanted to address the topic of domestic violence survivors with pets who experience homelessness, there is no better person to have on this podcast than Genevieve and her Pets of the Homeless organization. So Genevieve, I want you to introduce yourself and tell us how you created what prompted you to create Pets of the Homeless.
Great. Okay. My name is Genevieve, and I am the founder and the president. Went nonprofit in 2008. A couple of years before that, I had been on a trip to New York, and I saw a gentleman with a dog on the sidewalk. He wasn't panhandling, he was just there. I have seen homeless many, many times, and like most people, walked by with blinders on. They were invisible. I didn't want to make eye contact because then I would feel like I needed to give them something. So like most people, I would walk by, but the thing that caught my eye was the dog. And I was, in my mind, I was like, how is he taking care of that dog? He can't take care of himself. So I came back to, we're headquartered here in Carson City, Nevada. I came back to Carson City, and I started calling organizations that work with homeless, associations, other nonprofits, trying to dig out how many of these folks are on the streets with animals. And I was amazed when they said 10 to 15%. Well, I'd also learned that 3.5 million people are homeless during a year. They come in and out of it, or they're in it, chronically. So I thought, okay, if 10% of 3.5 million, that's a lot of pets out there that need help. So the first thing I thought of was, and at that time, I didn't realize that food stamps or SNAP benefits don't allow people to purchase pet food. So I went to my local doctor, my veterinarian, and I said, how about if we put in a receptacle in the reception area, and people can donate pet food, and then your staff can weigh it and figure out how much, take it over to our local food bank where it'll be distributed to low income as well as homeless. And I'd already made arrangements with the food bank saying, you know, would you be able to distribute any donations? And they were like, yes, we need that so bad. So that's kind of how the whole thing started. That I did a press release. That morning, the paper came out. By that afternoon, that bin was over full of pet food. And that's when I knew that this idea that I had was going to work. And at that point, I wanted it to be across the country. So I knew it was going to be successful just based on that one donation site. Anyway, that was in 2000, before 2008, really, when they joined as a donation site. Anyway, as time went on, we ended up evolving into 5 different programs that are free to people experiencing homelessness and to help their pets. So with that in mind, of course, when we'd get phone calls from mostly women in domestic violence that were seeking our help. You know, what can I do? I can't leave my pet behind. The abuser has threatened harm and murder to my dog or my cat, so I can't leave it behind. What am I going to do? Our advice at that point was to get in contact with your organization because I knew about you. And then if that wasn't possible, that they go to a local motel out of town so that the abuser couldn't find them, and get into a motel that would allow pets. So that was our advice at that time. Then it was, and if your animal is injured or ill, call me back and I'll be happy to treat that animal. So over the years, we have actually treated over 30,000 pets, either through our emergency veterinary care or through one of our wellness clinics, which is another program that we have. So getting back to why I'm on your show today, we have had cases, and I know that you're going to put the links on your at the end of the show so that people can read about 3 pets that we have on our website that are pets that we have helped, and they belong to women that had experienced domestic violence. On another program that we do, we ship metal collapsible crates to homeless shelters and domestic violence shelters so that pets are allowed in. So over the course of the last almost 16 years, we've shipped only 315 crates to shelters in 14 states. I know that 35 of those crates have gone to domestic violence shelters. So we're happy to be able to do that. So that's kind of the story of how it works. I can get into more details about when somebody calls our number at 775 in Carson City at our headquarters. I have 3 full-time case managers. All they do is take phone calls from homeless, verify homelessness, and then work with one of our hospitals. Right now, we have over 1,800 hospitals across the country that have worked with us, who know who we are. They give us a discount. We pay them at time of service. So how that whole program works, we get somebody call us. My animal is injured or ill, and they tell us what's going on with their pet. Then our managers do an intake interview, and they ask them questions like, are you a veteran? Are you getting Social Security? Are you over 65? Are you disabled? Are you getting SNAP benefits? And do you have a social worker? So those are the questions that we ask. We also ask if they have transportation, because we don't want to line them up with a hospital that's 10 miles away and they have no way to get there. So we're very conscious of that as well. Although I have to say that about 88% of our clients last year had some kind of transportation. Maybe it was a friend, maybe it was somebody in the shelter that had a car that would be able to drive them somewhere. A lot of our clients, actually 29% last year, were actually living in their cars. So what we're finding a lot of times, people that are over 65, Social Security and their pensions aren't enough to keep up with rent or with real estate taxes. So they're faced with evictions, foreclosures, and these are people over 65 that, they've worked their life and now they're at a time when they are on the streets, and it's sad.
Yeah, and and I come at this industry through the human animal bond, and when you think about going through a tragedy, a trauma, domestic violence, elder abuse, losing your home because, like you said, you can't pay the property taxes or the mortgage. It is that connection to our companion animals that gives us a reason to wake up in the morning, gives us a reason to keep going. It's that unconditional love. There's health benefits from that human animal bond. And, and this is why we can see so many people experiencing homelessness have pets, whereas most people might look at that and say, well, you need to give up your pet, when no, they need their pet. They need their pet because it actually could pull them out of homelessness and get them back with a roof over their head. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That unconditional love, these pets are with their humans 24/7. And to have them separated for any reason is uh, is traumatic for both the animal and for the human, because they're so used to being with each other. At our wellness clinics, our veterinarians will tell us that most of these pets are very healthy. As they get older, of course, they're going to have, teeth problems. Maybe they'll have a thyroid problem. There's all kinds of things that happen, especially people that are on the streets where their dogs are exposed to more traffic. My dog hardly ever goes outside of my yard and my home, and she's on my bed right now, probably taking a nice nap. But with the homeless, they're with their pet all the time. These pets are usually very social. So if somebody sees a person on the street with a pet, you can probably go up to them very cautiously and start a conversation, because they feel so isolated. Everybody walks by without looking at them, but that dog is a way to get that social connection back. And by walking up very carefully, not threatening in any way, because they're very protective of their human. So just to start that conversation a few feet away, gee, what a beautiful dog. What's his name? What's her name? It just opens up that, because it's so lonely to be isolated like that. And yeah, a lot of homeless encampments across the country, they get to be familiar with the others in that camp or on the sidewalks. I mean, we've seen tents lined up on sidewalks. I know you're calling from California. California is one of the largest states we get the most calls from. In fact, last year, we paid hospitals over $883,000 at California hospitals.
Oh,
So
wow. Wow. I'm
Yeah.
actually calling from Michigan.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Why did
No,
I think?
that's maybe I look
Ah,
like a California girl. I don't know. Yeah, but that when you made the comment that a lot of these pets are quite healthy, it made me remember there's a guy here in town, and a young guy. I mean, he can't be any older than 40, and he has a dog. And whenever I see him, if it happens to be, where there's a red light and I'm not, driving past and can't stop, I'll ask him, hey, can I go get you a sandwich? And the very first time I got him a sandwich, it was a turkey sandwich. He gave the turkey to his dog and he just ate the bread. And
yeah.
after that, it's like, no, 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 no. I will get you a sandwich. And then I just asked the deli, I'm like, can you just put some turkey and some chicken just in a plastic bag? Like, I'll pay for a second sandwich, but I don't need the bread and I don't need the toppings. He was giving the most important, nutrition
Yes.
of
Yeah.
that sandwich to his pet. And that's one thing that I've really noticed. I even experienced that. I mean, this was way back in the day when I was still in the Washington, D.C. area, and having a lot of meetings with Meals on Wheels about providing pet food. I really wanted them to do that at a national level, but I understood why they couldn't, and it needed to be done at a local level, because there's two. And they even said they have people that they distribute the Meals on Wheels to, and those people are giving their meals to their pets. And they are nutritionally deprived, but they will do whatever it takes to keep their pet alive because that's a lifeline for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So who does Pets of the Homeless primarily work with? So you work with veterinary hospitals, correct?
Right.
Okay,
Any
who else?
we work with businesses, and I collaborate with a lot of other nonprofits in the animal welfare world, and we exchange resources. So if somebody's on our website and they need something that we can't help them with, we're going to give them another resource. And so we kind of collaborate that way. We and like I'm on your website, you're on my website, so that works. Businesses that want to participate and show their community that they are socially responsible, they can be a donation site and then work with a local food bank or a pet food pantry. On our website, there is an interactive map, and you can put in your hometown, and it will show you if there's a shelter that allows pets. It will give you resources. It'll show you where to donate pet food, and it will show people that need it where to get that pet food. They don't go to the donation sites to pick up pet food. They are instructed to go to where they're getting human food. It may be a soup kitchen. It may be a food bank where they go every day to get a certain amount of food because they can't carry that much. So most of our, we call them pet food providers, repackage all the pet food into smaller bags because you can't expect somebody to be carrying around a 25-pound bag of dog or cat food. So they give them a smaller portions, and then they usually come back daily or weekly to replenish that for their animal. We get that, we know that. So we work with businesses, all kinds of businesses across the country. And we're hoping to expand that even more so, because during COVID, during the pandemic, we lost about half of our donation sites. Because no one was coming there to their business anymore, and a lot of them closed their doors completely. A lot of them didn't have time to pick it back up. So we're slowly trying to build that back up because the need is so horrible. The need is there. I mean, we saw all the cars lined up at food banks. They were getting pet food as well as human food while they were in their cars getting food. With that in mind, I can tell you that the donation sites that we have now and have reported back to us that they took over 2.1 million pounds of pet food to various other organizations that distribute it. A lot of times in a city where there used to be 2 or 3 donation sites that would supply that one food bank, they're gone. And now the food bank is calling us, and now we're having to purchase and drop ship it to that location because the clients have gotten used to getting that pet food. And when they pull up or they go to the pantry and they say, I need pet food, we don't have any. I don't know what to tell you. So, you know, it's that cycle that we need to keep going. And so, you know, if any of your listeners are business owners that is open to the public and they'd like to be a donation site, they can get on our website. It's real easy. We give them all the information that they need to get started.
Wow. So how many donation sites do you have right now?
Right now, we have got just over 200. And at one point, we had over 500.
Wow. Wow. And are you in all 50 states?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Wow. Even Alaska?
Yes.
Okay.
Alaska, Hawaii. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That
We're
yeah.
actually also in Canada.
Oh, I did not know that. That is awesome. I have a tremendous connection with Humane Canada.
Oh, good.
I probably need to connect you with them because they are doing a lot of work on the link between animal abuse and violence to people, and I collaborate extensively with them. I think I'm going to connect you to them.
Thank you.
I think that'll literally explode Canada for you. They are a tremendous resource to have. So
yeah.
Thank you for telling me that.
I hope that they can help because
Yeah.
right now, last year, just to give you an idea, the 3 case managers that are full-time, they took and made over 25,000 phone calls.
Wow.
Yeah. Staff-wise, it was over 46,000 phone calls and there's a staff of us, there's 11 of us here now doing everything we can to keep this going. And I can tell you that there is a succession plan because I'm not a young woman anymore, and that we do have an endowment fund of almost $1 million. So I know that this is going to continue on. With a generous bequest, we were able to purchase our own building, and that's where our headquarters are at. So that is that same sustainability that I know that even after I'm gone, my legacy will continue and that this organization will be here. I just don't, you know, there's a lot going on in Congress and at the Supreme Court level about homelessness. And we hear about it all the time. I just don't, as much as we want it to go away, I just don't see that happening. And I see more and more people calling us. Some of them are young. Some of them have been aged out of foster care. And 50% of those kids end up being homeless. And getting that dog or that cat means so much to them. They didn't have a good environment in most cases in where they were at, and now they're left on the streets without any support. So
there's so many scenarios where someone can experience homelessness. It's not a situation that anyone is immune from. And I mean, just like you said, kids aging out of foster care. And I think most people don't think about that.
One paycheck away from being homeless in most Americans. They just don't have the wherewithal or the education to have that little bit of money for those emergencies. I know this organization, we have a 3-month rainy day fund so that if I never got another cash donation, we would be able to last for 3 months.
Yeah.
But that brings up the point that we can't do this without the public's help.
Yeah.
We don't get government funding. And it's very important that we keep that flow coming in constantly. So, just to give you an idea, last year we paid $1.3 million just on that one program, just on veterinary care. That wasn't staff or overhead. That was the actual cost to us. And even with all the discounts from the hospitals, it was like $130,000 in discounts. So that equates to about 10%.
Wow, that's that is a lot of help that you're giving, and you probably think it's still not even enough, because there still are people out there with pets who don't know about you and don't know how to get connected to the services. I mean, in my work with the SAFeTY program, I've been thinking about this, and the SAFeTY program, we do not work directly with domestic violence survivors, yet I get emails every day from survivors needing safe sheltering with their pets. And I can estimate that easily half of those emails are people who are experiencing homelessness. They cannot get into shelter with their pet. They cannot even get into a homeless shelter with their pet, but they are domestic violence survivors on the street or living in a car with their pet. And so I want to read something here, because these numbers just shock me every day, shock me. And my gosh, I mean, I've been in this industry for 30 years as a former prosecutor. Nothing should shock me at this point, yet I continue to be shocked every day. So according to the National Network to End Domestic Violence, that's a national group I've done a lot of work with. They are phenomenal. And they reported that up to 57% of unsheltered women, and just women, not men, just women, report that domestic violence was the immediate cause of their homelessness, 57%. And then additionally, 38% of all victims of domestic violence experience homelessness at some point in their lives. 38%. That is crazy. And then more than 90% of unhoused women, just women, not men, women, have experienced severe physical or sexual abuse at some point in their lives. And 63% have been victims of sexual or of domestic assault. Those numbers are staggering to me, staggering. Now, knowing that 70% of Americans have a pet, you add that into those numbers, and we have a problem.
Yeah.
We have a problem. And what goes through my mind, which I know goes through your mind, when someone is a victim of domestic violence or sexual assault or stalking or whatever the interpersonal violence behavior is, that in and of itself is problematic. Then if they have a pet who is giving them the comfort and the love and the unconditional support, and because of that unconditional partnership with a pet, they can't get into shelter, that's where I see an epidemic happening. So can you talk a little bit about domestic violence survivors with pets who experience homelessness, and what Pets of the Homeless can or is doing to help specifically that population?
During the intake interview that my case managers do, they do not ask the question, are you a victim of domestic violence or some kind of abuse? We don't ask that question. And maybe that's something we should start asking. I mean, I'm open to adding that to our questionnaire. But a lot of times they will give us that information. So the three cases that I have on the website are just that they are a victim of domestic violence. And their stories, all three of them, are very different. We've got one that was in Florida, one in Santa Barbara, California, which is a very affluent community. And the other one, where was the other one? Oh, geez. Well, anyway, your viewers can read these about a teddy bear, a cat, about a male husky dog, and these, and then another smaller dog. But I think that the thing that we have to understand is some of these, all the domestic violence people that call us and their animals ill or injured, we're going to help them. You know, what if they can verify that they're homeless right now, if they're in a shelter, of course we're going to help them. It's a quick phone call to the manager of the shelter that's going to tell us, yeah, she's here or he's here, and we're going to move forward with that. It's baffling to me, the figures that you just rattled off. I was like, wow, maybe this is a question we need to start asking, because last year 62% of our clients that we treated their pets, 62% were women. And it makes me wonder if not, of that 975 women that we help their pets, maybe 50% or more were victims of domestic violence. Based on your percentages, it wouldn't surprise me in the least. And maybe that is a question that we need to ask. So, yeah, this is, wow.
Yeah, well, and this is where I really like our collaboration that we do, because whenever I, receive an email from somebody who is a domestic violence survivor with a pet and they are currently experiencing homelessness, if they do not have a pet-friendly domestic violence shelter in their community, first thing I do, I send them to you. I'm like, contact Pets of the Homeless. Let's see what immediately we can do. And then I send them the shelter listing and just ask them, if there's any way that you can transport you and your pet to your nearest pet-friendly shelter, here's the listing. So for you on your end, if you want to include that question, you could just arm, the people who are working the phone lines with my website, so that if somebody says, I am a domestic violence survivor with a pet, they can literally pull up the website and say, okay, where are you at? Okay, you're in Colorado. Here's all the shelters in Colorado, and pinpoint where they may be able to go. And this is where I love that we're coming at this issue from two different directions, and hopefully we can sandwich that survivor with a pet with the resources that they need.
Oh, this is going to be wonderful. Yeah, that's exactly what we will do.
Yeah.
It may take a while for this to start kicking in and to get the stats. It may take over a year, but we'll start working on that right away. We have another program that we've started that involves homeless veterans. We've always helped veterans, and you'd be surprised how many women veterans there are out there. But anyway, we have a memorandum of agreement with the VA that if they have a veteran that's been on the streets and they get them into some kind of housing, if they need vaccinations or spay and neuter, we'll pay for that. And while they're in that program with the HUD-VASH, with the VA, then we will treat any illnesses or injuries of those pets. So, we've always helped people in any kind of a homeless or domestic violence shelter.
So the veterinary care that you are offering, you cover it 100%?
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. So you have your pet food donation sites, you're doing veterinary care and wellness checks, you have emergency care, you got veteran support, and the pet crates. Those are like the 5 big things. Did I miss anything?
Let's see, food,
Yes,
emergency, wellness clinics, crates, and the veteran
veterans.
pet support.
Yeah,
There's the 5. Yep.
that's a lot.
It is a lot. And
That is a lot.
as much as I would love to offer more in the form of foster care, because a lot of our homeless, we get the calls that I have to go to the hospital, or they're taken to the hospital. Now the pet's been turned over to the animal shelter. To get that pet back is almost impossible.
Yeah,
And if that pet is elderly or injured or ill, the
yeah,
chances of it making out of that animal shelter, are pretty slim. So, as much as I would like to add another whole program, I just can't. I don't have the staff or the funds to do that.
yeah. That is a big effort to create a foster network. That is
Yeah, yeah,
that in and of itself is its own organization that would then
yes, yeah,
support what you're doing. So
yeah,
just putting it out there over the airwaves, if somebody wants to create that, foster pets of the homeless, there you go. There you
yeah,
go. It's, it is so needed,
yeah.
and
And
one
then
question.
with
Oh, go
there are
ahead.
some of the laws in some of the cities and states where they're actually arresting homeless for sleeping on the sidewalk or in a park. They don't understand that the homeless sleep during the day because the nights are so dangerous.
Yeah.
And that's why you will see people in the park asleep, because during the night they can't go to sleep.
Yeah.
So when the police do a sweep in an encampment or wherever they are, those animals are taken to the animal shelter. And it's just not right to separate that animal human bond. And there's so much of that going on across the country right now. And then the big case of Grant Pass and Johnson that is going to be heard, I believe, tomorrow or Monday. Anyway, it's now going to make some ripples across the country,
Is that a
whatever their
Supreme Court?
decision.
Supreme
Yes,
Court? Okay.
yes, it's
Yeah.
gone all the way up there.
Yeah. Well, and so I guess this gets me to my next question about homeless shelters not taking pets. And this is the question that I get, hey, Allie, why don't you expand the SAFeTY program to homeless shelters? Well, that's its own organization on its own. That's its own monster pot of things to do. And I don't have the capacity. I got a big enough,
Right.
Issue, trying to take care of all the domestic violence shelters and get more on board. So why aren't more domestic violence shelters coming on board with on-site pet housing?
Good question. And a lot of it has to do with city, county, state laws about animals going into a building. If they, by law, and you would know this, if it's a service animal, they cannot refuse
Right.
to let that animal in.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there's a lot of gray area there about emotional support or companion pets. That there's a lot of, and so to make up those rules in these homeless shelters, it's difficult. And then there's a whole program about the rules of having a pet there, and can you adhere to that? And if not, then what happens? The pet gets taken someplace else if it's not being cared properly.
Mm-hmm.
And who's to judge that? So there are so many variables to why homeless shelters don't allow pets. And in some states, it's breed will
Mm-hmm.
be the determination of whether
Yeah.
that pet's allowed.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and one thing that I always respond with when I ask, hey, can you help a homeless shelter with this? I just tell them, hey, take the SAFeTY startup manual, which is a complete start to finish for the domestic violence shelters, take that and tweak it for a homeless shelter.
Oh, yeah.
And because 99% of what is in the SAFeTY startup manual can absolutely be transposed over to a homeless shelter. So, if anybody is listening to this who works or volunteers for a homeless agency, just reach out and I will get that SAFeTY startup manual in your hands so that we can start transforming that. But an actual like monitoring and keeping a list, I don't know anybody who's doing that, who's keeping a list of homeless shelters that are pet friendly. Do you know of any?
We try to find as many as we can, and we list them on our website.
Oh,
So,
okay, good.
Yes. Yeah. So they're there. Of course, we can't list domestic violence shelters because of obvious reasons, but we always, as a resource, send them over to your website so they can see if there's something in that state. But now that, we've had this conversation, I can see that many of our clients that are women are probably domestic violence victims, and we need to start moving them to your resources.
Yeah.
This will be great.
Yeah. Just connect them with the domestic violence shelters that are able to take pets. And the one thing that I always say to domestic violence shelters, because you were talking about service animals, Americans with Disabilities Act says you must allow a person with a service animal into, a public place. And if you can take a service animal, you can take a companion animal. And that's where we start. We start with, what is your setup for that person who has a leader dog for the blind? Now let's work backward from that. Because if you can take a litter dog for the blind, you can take Fluffy, your companion dog.
Yeah.
And that's where I start the conversation with them once they realize that. So yeah, there's ways that we can do this.
Great.
So all right. So couple of last questions. So you're looking for more donation sites, yes?
Yes.
And are you looking for more veterinarians to help?
Oh, always. It's always nice to have somebody ready to go when that dog gets hit by a car or stabbed or shot or whatever the situation is. And there's been some gruesome situations, I'll tell you. But if you have veterinarians that want to work with us and would give us a discount and know that we'll pay them at time of service, there is a whole process. We'd be happy to give them our policy and the steps of how the whole thing works. So if any of your listeners are out there and they know of a veterinarian that may be interested in working with us, please let them get to our website, which is petsofthehomeless.org.
Okay, so calling all veterinarians and calling all business owners with a brick and mortar location for being a pet food donation site.
Right.
We need you to contact Pets of the Homeless and offer to help out.
And we need cash. So please go to our website and donate. We could also use volunteers that want to go out and recruit donation sites or have a pet food drive in their community. We work with kids, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. We have a class, a teacher who teaches second grade. And for the last 6 years, every year, her class has a pet food drive. It's so adorable. And these kids, it makes them realize that there's people out there that need help and they have a dog or a cat. So it's a great learning experience about your community and giving back. Anyway.
Yeah. All right, last question. If a listener knows of somebody experiencing homelessness and they have a pet, or they see somebody in their community in that situation, what can they do to help in that moment?
In that moment, they can give that person our phone number. Our case managers pick up the phone between 9 and 3, 5 days a week. All other phone calls go through our system, and then they are taken in the order that they have come in. The reason that they from 9 to 3 is because there is a couple of hours on either side of that where we're making phone calls to verify homelessness, to set up a hospital that's going to work with our clients. So, you know, it sounds like they only work 6 hours. No, they work 8 hours a day, believe me. And it's can be very, very stressful because people are calling, they're frantic. They
Mhm.
don't have the resources to take their animal to the vet. I
Yeah.
can tell you that last year, the average cost per pet was $770
Oh my gosh. Wow.
because they're calling when their pet is injured or ill. And
Yeah.
while that pet is at the hospital, we're going to have the doctor update the vaccinations and they'll charge us. If the animal's going to be put under anesthesia, we'll ask the doctor to get permission to do a spay and neuter.
Mhm.
A lot
Yeah.
of times, you know, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
And if you have pets, you know how expensive it is just to go in for a routine yearly appointment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure it is.
So when
So
it's an injury or an illness, it's even more.
yeah, yeah, it adds up. So what is the
Yeah.
phone number that people can call?
775-841-7463.
Okay. And I'll put that in the show notes so that
Okay, good.
that's there.
And
So
those cases about the people that we
Mm.
have who identified their self as domestic violence. Yeah,
yeah,
it'd
I
be
will put
great.
those in there because those are heartwarming and worth reading, and you did such great work and continue to do such great work. And I'm so glad that you have a succession plan to just keep going forever and ever and ever, because like you said, as sad as it is, this is just a situation and an issue that is not going to go away. And there's just unfortunately going to be people experiencing homelessness and they have a pet. And I'm so glad that you are there to help. And I am honored that we connected so long ago, because it just gives me a lot of peace of mind that I can send people your way. And I know that they're going to get help. So thank you. And thank you for being here and sharing all of this. I know everybody is going to love this information, and it's just going to open their eyes to something that they may have never thought about before. And now this is just going to raise so much more awareness about the great work that you're doing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. I love this opportunity and this collaboration that we've kind of had over the years, but now it's more solid.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. And again, go to petswiththehomeless.org, check out what they do. If you can be a donation site, that would be great. If you are a veterinarian and can help out in any way, in whatever you can do, that would help. If you can provide support, this is a worthy organization. So thank you, Genevieve, for being here. It's always a pleasure, and I'm so glad we had this conversation. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
If you are in harm's way and need help, please visit the Pet Inclusive Shelter listing at safetyprogram.org, call your nearest domestic violence shelter, or call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Want to support our efforts and help us keep the SAFeTY Startup Manual free for domestic violence shelters? Consider donating at safetyprogram.org/donate. Your donation saves lives.